Um, yeah. Well, welcome everybody. World Polio Day is Monday, the 24th. And 2 years ago, we had a Zoom program observing World Polio Day. It was a great attendance, and we rolled out the Polio Plus Society that day. So Terry and I thought it'd be good to have another one about now with some new faces and some new more news. So we're going to here's kind of a rundown of what we'll do here. We'll adjourn at 10:30. District Governor Anita will welcome everybody. Then I have a fairly short PowerPoint program talking about what polio is and Rotary's involvement over the years with eradication. And then I'm going to interview Jim Lewis, Rotarian from District 5240 in Southern California. Jim is a polio survivor and many years the Polio Plus chair on the DRFC in his district. Then we'll ask Gary Hirsch to tell us about the Ride to End Polio coming up on November 19. Charlotte Harris will tell us about the indoor ride that's adjunct to the Ride to End Polio. We have a short video by President Jennifer Jones. And then Terry will bring us up to date on the Polio Plus Society. There's some very good news there from the trustees of the Rotary Foundation. So Anita, thank you for joining us. And do you have a few words for our folks?
I sure do. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all the faces that I know are very familiar with polio and our efforts to eradicate it from the earth and everything. So I guess, it's a good time for us to, on World Polio Day, to celebrate what we've done, to reflect on the accomplishments we have. And certainly, I think we've been making great progress, and we were so excited about all of our progress. I remember a few years back at one of the RI International meetings that, they changed the name to End Polio Now, and we were this close, and we were all getting quite excited about that. And certainly the foundation monies served as an impetus to all of us to press forward and to achieve our goal. And, when I think about 1985 being the start of that goal, it's just remarkable how we've hung in there and stayed focused. And I guess that's what Rotarians do. But certainly the recent outbreaks in other parts of the world, in Malawi and Mozambique, and then closer to home, the case that came up in New York, kind of reminded us that, we're still not done, and we have a lot of work yet to do. And the challenge has been put out there that we're attempting to raise another 50 million for the next 3 years, and the Gates Foundation has agreed to match those funds, and so we must press forward. And so I think Michael will go over some of that history with you, and I'm looking forward to the interview with Jim. And I guess I really want to thank Michael for taking the time and putting this together. He is our Polio Plus chair. He's done an excellent job and very committed to this effort. And I'd also like to thank Terry Bergman for her behind the scenes efforts there with getting us all going, but she's the foundation chair and provides that leadership. And And certainly, Jim, we appreciate you being able to respond to us on such a brief notice. And but you know, the circumstances could not be avoided. And but that's again what Rotarians do. We step up and step in for each other. So with that, I just express my appreciation to all of you for being here, and to Michael for having this opportunity for us to reflect and renew our energy to rid our world of polio. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Anita's very busy these days. She's got her roller skates on doing club visits and traversing the district. So we're very glad she's with us here today. I would like to introduce a special friend. Greg Owen is with us. Greg is a Rotarian in the Long Beach Rotary Club. He and I were classmates as district governors in 2011 and 12. And he and Valerie have become very good friends. And they're wonderful supporters of Polio Plus. Greg is currently our Zone 26 End Polio Now coordinator. And he and Bob Rogers in Zone 27 to the north are doing a wonderful job of encouraging us and promoting support of the Polio Plus program. So Greg, I know you're traveling now. We appreciate you stopping in. Do you have a word for the Arizona Rotarians here?
I certainly do, Michael. I tell you, I'm fortunate to be here, believe me. You guys kicked something off a while back, when you mentioned it, Michael, as far as the World Polio Day. And I remember that day fondly because that was the day that I think you guys, signed up 60 or more brand new, Polio Plus Society members. So that was a great start to something fantastic. And I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder because I know that there's going to people that are going to share later what's happened in the world of Polio Plus Society, which is wonderful. It's just a fantastic thing. We started that society. The original vision was to have create a Rotary Direct for polio fund, and that was kind of my goal when they asked you to set goals for your zone, for your time that you're a zone coordinator. And that was kind of my vision, was to create that Rotary Direct. I love the Rotary Direct situation because it gets people started, and especially when they put it on a credit card, they start something and they just forget about it. It just happens. But when you're committing to the society, you're committing every year, so that every year when you're fundraising for polio, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from where you left off the previous year, and you're growing it from there. I'm home now, and I'm home now, Michael. So you have Molly, the champion, the mascot of Polio Plus Society, is just barking. So I'm kind of transitioning, but between meetings. But anyway, it's special what you've done for the society, and it's a special thing we're doing with that. For Rotary, hopefully it's going to make it a lot easier to meet that $50 million World Polio Challenge for Rotary to continue our Polio Plus program. So you'll learn more about what's happened this week. That's so special, and a lot of people that went to bat for all of us to make great things happen. And it's an interesting time for polio, with the outbreak in New York and the specifics behind that and everything, and London and Israel and all these other places. We've had Jarita Brusalari just returned from Pakistan and some time over there, and informed us that there's a lot of wonderful things happening, and we're going to make the goal. And the goal right now is to be polio free in the world by the end of 26. So that's a great goal. It's something that's, we can see that light at the end of the tunnel, and it's pretty great for all of us. And that's going to be a great opportunity. I expect each and every person to be there at the finish line when the World Health Organization announces that we've created, and Rotary started this whole thing, decades ago, and we stayed the course. The wonderful thing about being a Rotarian is that you do big things in the world, and you start big projects, but you complete them, and you don't give up, and you continue until we finish that. That's what Rotarians do, and that's what each and every one of you and all of us continue to do. It's wonderful. Michael's put some great people together here today for you to learn more about polio. And one of my close friends, and he'll tell you more, Jim Lewis from 5240, who's Jim and I work together quite a bit and have done finally done some things that he'll tell you about, I'm sure. But he's a great advocate for polio awareness, and you'll be able to enjoy him as you have in the past. I will see you all at the bike ride. So I'm bringing the the polio awareness trailer over to you to be at one of the, I guess, the finish line for your bike ride and all the wonderful things you all do. Thank you for doing that. I mean, that is one great continuing, sustaining project that the world of Rotary, polio really appreciates, and the world of Rotary is in total appreciation for what you've done and what you continue to do for this horrible disease, and what we're doing to for the children of the world. We created that promise many years ago that no child will suffer in the future with crippling effects of polio, and we're making that happen. So hey, have a great meeting, and please continue to do everything you can for polio. Molly and I will as well. I just gave 2 Polio Plus pins the last couple of days to some Rotarians that are actually they were in South Carolina with me. We just had a celebration. We had a grand opening of a new warehouse that we built there. But I gave him these pins and told him I was starting them off in that gift of $100 a year minimum. And they both tearfully accepted those pins, but they promised me, says they will have a 100% Polio Plus Society club before this year ends. So, and I know they will do that. I know that will happen. And for every club that and makes that commitment and finally makes that goal, Molly gives each club a 100% Polio Plus Society banner with what their Rotary Club's name on that banner. It's a pop-up banner, so it's something that you could you could take from event to event and be proud of. Thank you all. Appreciate it, Michael. I hope I didn't take too much time, but thank you.
No, not at all, Greg. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your devotion to our cause and for your leadership. And please stay with us as long as you can this morning. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
And now I'm going to share my screen, hopefully, and do a PowerPoint presentation that, let me see here. See if I can do this. Okay. Okay, can everybody see it? Oh, okay, good. So first of all, just a quick word. What is polio? Well, it's a virus, highly infectious, attacks the nervous system, and it's transmitted through the fecal oral transmission route. So it's prevalent in areas that have poor sanitation, and it affects primarily children, although not exclusively. it apparently is an old disease. Here's a tablet from 14th century BC Egypt that appears to show a guy with a withered right leg, and people surmise that that was caused by polio. Amazingly, FDR contracted polio at age 39. And this is a rare photograph of him. He did not like to be photographed in the wheelchair, but he was wheelchair bound for much of his presidency. He created the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis in 1938. And that organization changed names. The comedian Eddie Cantor came up with the name March of Dimes, which was much more memorable and easy to promote. And that was a very successful fundraising effort. This photograph just breaks my heart. I mean, these folks in these iron lungs, row after row, what a life that must have been. It's really just really tragic and amazing. I put this slide in. As a lawyer, insurance companies are not my favorite business. And it was almost like this insurance company was indicating if you buy their insurance, you'd be protected from polio. Oh. Well, obviously that's not the case, but it was amusing to me. This is a newspaper clipping in a hardware store on Main Street in my little hometown of Lander, Wyoming. And I took this photograph a couple of years ago. And the date on it, if you can't see it, is January 22nd, 1953. I was 6 years old, born and grew up in Lander, and can remember the fear that my parents had of us going to the city park swimming pool. We didn't do it. So even in Lander, polio was on everybody's mind. We all know about Jonas Salk, conducted the field trials and developed the injectable vaccine, safe, effective, and potent. And does anybody know why we observe World Polio Day on October 24th? It was Jonas Salk's
birthday.
Jonas Salk's birthday. That's right. So he deserves a great deal of credit. And then in 1961, Albert Sabin developed the oral vaccine, which made it possible for lay people, non-medical people, to administer the drops. So we got much wider vaccination efforts around the world. The Salk vaccine was a dead virus, but nonetheless created antibodies to fight polio. The Sabin vaccine was a live polio virus, very attenuated, but nonetheless. And I'll talk about vaccine-derived polio in a moment. So Rotary's involvement started in 1979, actually, with a 3H grant in the Philippines to vaccinate children. We don't have 3H grants anymore, Health, Hunger, Humanity, but this was a huge project in the Philippines. And Rotarians started thinking, well, let's don't limit our work to the Philippines. So in 1985, Rotary made the audacious pledge to eradicate polio worldwide. And the goal was to do it by Rotary Centennial, 2005. Well, we clearly didn't make that, but that was the start of it. Carlos Canseco was a medical doctor in Monterrey, Mexico, and he's credited with being the father of Polio Plus. I think it's more that he was president at the time we began the effort in 1985. I don't know that he was really that much hands-on. Other Rotarians motivated the effort. In '88, we acquired some partners, and you will hear a lot about the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. That started out the consortium of Rotary, UNICEF, the US CDC, and the World Health Organization. And WHO really is sort of the glue these days of the effort. And then we later acquired some additional partners. The Gates Foundation has been a marvelous supporter. They match the money that we raise 2 for 1, up to $50 million that we raise, they will match that 2 for 1. So our job is every year to raise 50 million. Gates himself is not a Rotarian. His father was a Rotarian in Seattle, but at one of the conventions, I don't remember which it was, Bill Gates spoke and said that the #1 priority of his foundation was eradication of polio. So that was a great endorsement. Gavi is a vaccine alliance. They produce much of the serum, the vaccine that is used. So when we started in '88 earnestly, things looked pretty bleak. 360,000 cases a year in 125 countries. Most of those cases, these are paralytic polio cases, most of them in children. So it was really a staggering challenge for Rotary. World Health Organization divides the world into these 6 regions. And when a particular region doesn't have a new case of wild polio virus, WHO declares, doesn't have a new case for 3 years. WHO declares that region polio free. And India, the subcontinent of India, the blue there, was declared polio free in 2014, and Africa in 2020. Nigeria was the last country to have endemic polio. The Americas were certified in 1994, and Europe was certified in the year 2002. So the only remaining World Health Organization region is the Eastern Mediterranean region, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Here's a chart that kind of traces the numbers. Every year the numbers went down. In 2008, there were only 4 countries with endemic polio. And then by 2017, only two countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we got down to 22 cases in 2017. They spiked the next couple years. 2021, just last year, there were only 6 cases, all in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And this year to date, there have been 22 cases in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and 7 in Mozambique. So we're kind of going the wrong direction. And there remain challenges yet, of course. Some of these challenges that we've dealt with over the years, rumors that the polio vaccine was a Western plot to sterilize Muslim children, that had some traction in Nigeria until Jonathan Majiabi, a past president of Rotary International, and some other Nigerian Rotarians started being vocal about what really is going on and got that rumor turned around, fortunately. In Afghanistan, the Taliban, for a period, assassinated health workers, believe it or not. These days, fortunately, the Taliban, which controls Afghanistan now, welcomes the polio workers. Political climate, these days with the COVID vaccine, that has political overtones, unfortunately, and that spills over, I'm sure, to polio vaccine. And then we have the outbreaks, most recently in New York State, that are challenges that we have to deal with. So the numbers that I showed earlier are the wild polio virus, essentially type 1. There are 3 types. Type 2 was eradicated a number of years ago, as was type 3. But we deal now with the circulating vaccine-derived polio. I mentioned that the oral drops contain a weak but live virus. So in very rare cases, that vaccine itself can cause polio, vaccine-derived polio. And here are the numbers in recent years. And when a case arises, then the health workers jump right on it and do the vaccination wholesale in whatever community it is. Within the last year or two, a new vaccine has been developed, the novel polio vaccine. Those are the oral drops, but much less inclined to turn into the circulating vaccine-derived polio cases. So those are being used more and more now. After so many years, what has it been, 35 years plus, a lot of Rotarians are saying, you know, we've tried, let's pull the plug on this thing. But the consequences of stopping and failing are enormous. 200,000 cases a year within the next 10 years, huge financial costs that we will have forfeited, the investment we made, and the loss of productivity in coming years. So all the Rotary leadership, the board and the trustees are firmly committed to see this through. The Global Polio Eradication Initiative developed a strategy for the next 4 years at a cost of $5.1 billion to try to finish the job. And Rotary, of course, is forefront in that. In the past, you've seen campaigns, We Are This Close campaign, and I'm sure you recognize most of these people. Jane Goodall, top left, Jack Nicklaus, who contracted polio as a child. A lot of people don't know that. Obviously didn't affect his golf game as he got older. Itzhak Perlman, the professional concert violinist, lower left, he's a supporter of our efforts, and he remains quite disabled, crippled with polio. I think he wears braces and crutches. There's Gates, and then Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The woman top center is Queen Noor of Jordan, and she's helped our effort as well. Another thing that's been done is to light up iconic buildings around the world. Left, that's the Opera Center in Sydney. And top right, I believe that's the Colosseum in Rome. Many of us have been on National Immunization Days, NIDs, and Rotarians will organize these and go abroad to administer the drops. In 2005, past director Phil Silvers and I traveled to India for an NID. Here's Phil administering drops. Here I am, and I'll never forget this experience. This little guy kept spitting out the drops, and I couldn't get him to swallow them. Finally, I was satisfied that he took 2 drops and swallowed them. And I didn't even realize I had my arm around the mother there. But when we were done, I looked at her, and she had this amazing expression. It was kind of a combination of concern for her child, of course, but also gratitude for what we were doing. Because even in 2005 and still, people in India know what polio is. There are crawlers, people who crawl because of polio in public. So she was very appreciative. That was a wonderful experience for me. Ann Fisher in Yuma also went to India, 2002. And many of our Rotarians, I think Randy Brooks has been on an NID with us. And perhaps some of the others of you have been abroad. Some of us have gone to Caborca, Mexico, on a short NID trip also. So the foundation for a number of years has asked districts to contribute 20% of their new DDF every year, and clubs to contribute $1,500 a year to Polio Plus. And District Governor Anita and Foundation Committee Chair Terry developed the goals for our district this year. $80,000 to Polio Plus, a high percentage of our clubs contributing, and our ride to End Polio in November. We hope to raise 1.6 million. You add in the Gates 2 for 1, that would be $5 million for that ride. And Gary Hirsch will tell us what we've done over the years in that respect. And we set a goal to increase membership in our Polio Plus Society from currently 68 to 100. And that's part of what we're trying to do today. So our ride in polio has become very well known, well attended. Here's a great photograph that Linda Rumack took, and Gary will have a few more words about the ride. We've got an indoor ride, of course, and Charlotte has been shepherding that. Charlotte's husband, deceased husband, Mike Harris, of course, started our district's ride in polio. The El Tour de Tucson is the annual perimeter ride that's been going on 30 years. And I think 12, 13 years ago, Mike got a couple of his club members at Casas Adobes to ride with him to raise money. They raised a couple $1,000, but the thing grew. And it's been the place to be. We've had RI presidents with us, quite a number of directors of Rotary International. And the general secretary the staff CEO, John Hugo, and Marga have been writing with us for quite a number of years. And John has worldwide fundraising reach. So to a great extent, his participation has made our ride so successful to raise money. So that's kind of a quick overview of polio and Rotary's involvement in it. Let me see if I can get out of this here. Okay. All right. Let me see here. So at this point, I would like to speak with Jim Lewis for a little while. Jim is a 21-year Rotarian. He's a member of the Rotary Club of Moore Park in District 5240, Southern California. For 15 years, he's been that district's Polio Plus subcommittee chair on their district foundation committee. He's been a big supporter of the Rotary Foundation, major donor, Paul Harris Society, and so forth. Jim has been on 8 National Immunization Day trips to India over the years. He's received numerous awards from his district and from the Rotary Foundation for his work with polio eradication. Jim's career had a 40-year career as an educator, teacher, coach, and administrator of at high school level. And Jim is a polio survivor himself. So Jim, welcome to District 5500, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Oh, thank you for the invitation, Michael. It's an honor to be here. I do recognize a number of faces from our meetings.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
we've got some great Rotarians in Southern Arizona here. Jim, let me ask you a few questions, kind of personal questions, I guess, but we've talked about it. And how old were you when you contracted polio?
Okay. My brother and I got sick, kind of like getting the flu. And I was 5 years and 10 months old, and he was 3 years and 10 months old. And my father, of course, in the 40s, people were working like crazy. And my father was a football coach and high school football coach. And my mother at that particular time was not working, but she was kind of in the medical field. That was her training. But we got sick, and I lived in a town called Burbank up in the mountains. And there was a natural stream that went down the street, and there were no sewers. They were all septic tanks and leach lines and so forth. And of course, we used to play in that water. And I remember getting a drink in the water and so forth. But we became sick, and it progressed, and it got worse. And in my case, I was getting so weak that my mom and dad had to lift me up and so forth. So the doctor came to the house and looked us over, and there were, that was 1948. And of course, there were no vaccinations. And in that particular year of 1948, just in Los Angeles County alone, there were over 4,000 cases of paralytic polio. And so the doctor said, take them to the county general hospital, which they did. And in those days, there were no real freeways. They went on surface roads, and we finally got down there. And they put us on a gurney and rolled us in, and they gave me a spinal tap. And you know, they made you sit up, and I was just a little kid, but gave me this big needle that looked huge. And then they gave my brother, and I remember my brother screaming because it hurt so much. And they came back out. So they put us in the hospital beds, and they told my parents that we had polio. That was the last time I saw my parents, except when I was able to finally get up, and the nurses would help me walk probably about 20 feet to the window, and I could wave to my parents out the window of County General. Now, it was quite a ways up, so I could barely see them, but I was in about 6 weeks.
So when you got out, Jim, what was the effect? Did you have some paralysis then in your legs?
You know, thanks, Mike. I was completely paralyzed when I was in bed in the hospital. I couldn't even lift my fingers. And the nurses would come in and wrap my body with hot packs. Sister Kenny, remember the nurse out of Australia? And she believed that if you wrapped your body in hot, scalding wool blankets, it would help kill a virus and stimulate the muscles. And I truly believe that that was the case, because it helped me. And slowly but surely, from the paralysis, I started to be able to get, and with help, to be moved up and sit up, and eventually got to the point where they put me in a rehab with other polio survivors, and some of them were quite older. They were older kids, and it was quite a traumatic thing. They had a payphone. I remember they had a payphone, and if we were lucky, we were able to make a call to our mother and father. And I remember making those calls, just try to make a couple calls, and the older kids kept knocking on the phone booth because they wanted to get on the phone. But it was quite a traumatic thing. And I think my brother was not paralyzed, but he had polio. And they let him go home after about 2 weeks. And of course,
Jim, after you got out of the rehab, then I believe you told me that your left leg particularly was affected, and you mentioned the hot packs. Did you have some surgery on that left leg?
Yeah, I did, Mike. Okay, remember what happens, and I think all of us know this, but that polio virus kills the motor neuron. And those nerves that are killed, those muscles are going to atrophy and die. They're going to disappear. You're not going to have them. And it affected me. It didn't affect my lower legs, which in many cases it does. With me, it was my left quadriceps. And of course, you need your quadriceps to be able to walk. So I walked, but I walked with a limp, and I kept falling because my legs would give out. My right leg was okay. I remember sitting in the bathtub, and I had both my legs out as a little kid. And I said, my right leg's going to take care of my left leg. And so I fell all the time. And my father was, like I said, remember, he was a physical education teacher and coach, and part of his training was through Dr. Lohman at the Orthopedic Hospital in Los Angeles, at USC and over at Occidental College. So he took me to see Dr. Lohman at the orthopedic and looked at my leg, and Lohman said, I think we can do a muscle transplant. And we're going to take your bicep femoris, the hamstring on the left side of your left leg, We're going to disconnect it, and we're going to tunnel under the fascia because the muscle was gone. And we're going to sew it on the inside of your patella. This will act like a belt, and it'll help you so that you'll walk better and you won't fall.
So was that procedure done then?
That was done when I was 10 years old. So,
okay. And how did you do after that, after the procedure?
I did pretty good. I did better. And I think that kids go through, but
we lost your sound, Jim.
That the other children were doing, you know, climbing on the jungle gyms. You know, when I was a kid, I became a Boy Scout, and we had backpacks that we'd have to put on our back, and we'd go backpacking, and I would go up and hike and do the best I could. And I couldn't run. I mean, I could try to run, but I could not run very well. And I learned how to swim because of that. And I have to say this, Mike, therapy needs to be done in the water with polio survivors.
So you became a swimmer. You became a swimmer in high school and also later in college, right?
Yes, I did. Well, actually, through physical therapy at the swimming pool at Orthopedic Hospital, I kind of learned how to swim on my own.
Jim, after you completed your studies and got into your profession, did the polio residuals of the polio affect your career at all?
You know, Michael, I paced myself. When I was a kid, you know, the little kids, some of them would call me Louis the Limp. I had a limp. I grew up with a limp. I grew up with weakness. But did it get progressively worse? It did as I got older because I was doing all these things that probably I shouldn't be doing. But I wanted to do them because it was a challenge. And I said, I can do this. I could do this. Well, what it was really doing was tearing down the muscles and tearing those nerves that were left over that had branched out. They slowly but surely were dying off. And of course, that causes paralysis. It causes weakness and atrophy.
So are you talking now, Jim, about experiencing post-polio syndrome?
I am, Michael, yes.
Okay.
But your question was, did it affect me? I tried not to let it affect me at all. I even coached football for 3 years. I never played it, but my father, of course, did. And I was around it all my life. I coached water polo and swimming. And I would take kids into the swimming that had weakness in their legs. They weren't polio survivors, but, you know, kids that might have had cerebral palsy or kids that might need help. I got them into the water, and it helped me, and it just was a catalyst. My experience of being paralyzed and not wanting to be paralyzed and have it affect me just kept driving me to do what
it sounds to me, Jim, it sounds to me like you were determined not to let this disability affect you particularly, that you worked hard at swimming and physical therapy to overcome it. That's quite a terrific spirit. You've been a strong advocate over the years for Rotary's effort to eradicate polio. That I mentioned some of that. What would you say to to us Arizona Rotarians at this point about the need to continue this fight?
Good question, Michael. I think a lot of what people have said and what Greg has said and so many people, and if you've traveled on an NID, you see the determination, you see the burning desire to get rid of a disease that we can get rid of. If you immunize children, you can even immunize adults. My first NID was in '04. I had to get a booster shot for polio. And I think that it's an amazing thing for me to see the Rotarians that are so dedicated to getting rid of this disease because they realize that we can do it. We can do it. And when they started with that 3H grant in the Philippines, and it was so successful, and the ball started rolling, and they said, let's take this on. And go further back to that with the March of Dimes. My mother walked to collect dimes. And when you see a fellow like FDR, our president, that we hardly ever saw stand, if ever, and then we see our great organization with all the great things that we do, we cannot give up. We're not going to give up. We're not going to quit. I'll never forget when Winston Churchill, came to after the war, and I saw this and read this, and he was invited to go to, to New England and speak, I think it was at Yale or Harvard, about his experience and his philosophy of life. And he was quite the hero over there, in England. And all of these reporters were ready for him to give this nice speech, and they were ready to hear what he had to say about his philosophy of life. And he got up, and he was kind of rotund, and he had that deep voice. And he says, never, never, never give up. And he sat down. That was his philosophy of life. And we can never give up. We owe it to the children of the world. I have seen those kids in India. I've held them. When I gave the first vaccines, I cried because I knew that kid wasn't going to get polio. And I'm a Catholic, so I had to say a prayer for that kid and all of them. And when I did, and I would like to see us also take a look at the plus on Polio Plus. And let's start using some money as we eradicate to help those polio survivors left behind. I'm very, very lucky man, and my brother, and those of us that got polio in America, because we had iron lungs. I have one that I take all over. I just got back from the Central Coast. I was down at a big gala for District 5330 with Jennifer Jones. And I mean,
Jim,
her big thing is we can't give up, and I don't want anybody else to give up.
No, that you're correct. And you've been such a strong advocate. I remember a number of years ago, we had a function in Yuma, Arizona, in our district, at the community center there. And you brought your iron lung over and displayed it for us. And I clearly remember that. So, Jim, let me just tell you, we appreciate your advocacy, your passion, and thank you so much for joining us today to tell your personal story. And we thank you very, very much. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
When you gave drops, when you were giving vaccines in '05, and you had your arm around that mom. Moms and dads and grandparents, they love us for what we're doing. They admire us for what we do. And my mother cried so many times because we got polio. And the parents, no matter where they are in the world, thank us. We are a beacon, a shining beacon when they see Rotary. And do we have to educate them? Yeah, we do. But that's okay. So I'm just so happy that we're doing what we're doing, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us, and keep up the good work, Jim. Very, very
Thank
good.
you much. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Gary Hirsch to talk about the Ride to End Polio. Kirk Reed is the chair this year. Kirk is traveling. Gary has been chair of the ride and very instrumental for many years in making it so successful. So Gary, tell us about the ride. How can Rotarians support riders? How does the money flow? And how have we done over the years raising funds for Polio Plus?
Sure, happy to, Michael. Do you mind if I share my screen for just a couple seconds? I'd like to show something.
Please.
So it's an interesting question when we think about how we've done. So our ride, including the Gates Match, the ride that happens here in Tucson, has raised just under $57 million in 12 or 13 years, including the match from the Gateses. But the truth is, we have no idea how much has been raised. If you can see my my screen and the Twitter feed on my screen, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
So this is one person who started on October 1st in Japan, cycling across Japan to raise money, concluding on October 24th. In his individual ride to end polio. And the reason I'm showing this is that over the years, our ride has spurned so many different events of so many different types. And it's not a question of taking credit for it, but it is it's, I think, what is typical of Rotary. A good idea in Rotary tends to go viral. And so I'm going to stop the share. And the point that I want to make is there have been marathons, there have been bicycle rides, there have been runs. When Charlotte talks about the indoor ride, I don't want to steal her thunder, but there even have been people who've done competitive knitting to raise money for Polio Plus. And so it's really difficult to know the impact of what we started, but it certainly is rewarding to see people coming to ride from all around the world and seeing these little postings of things, athletic events that are happening around the world to raise money for polio through athletics. So that's the I guess that's the cream. Is at least here in Tucson, we can account for about $57 million. In terms of how to register, if people are planning to ride, there are a couple of dates. Now, registration will probably continue on into November, but El Tour is doing something different this year. And if you register by October 25th, which comes up here in just a few days, you will actually have your name printed on the, I forget what you call it, but on the thing we get with our rider number. Instead of just having the number, it'll have your name. The simplest way to talk about how to register is to go to our website, which is nowpolioride.org, and just click on the registration link. It's very simple. It'll take you to the perimeter registration site. And when you get to that site, you can basically say, I want to ride for a nonprofit and select Rotary. So did I see a hand up with a question?
Go ahead, John, unmute.
Yeah, hang on, I gotta find my mute button, I'm sorry. Gary, yeah, thank you. I registered just through the regular website, so I guess I'm not gonna get that information on my bib, huh?
Well, when you say the regular website, there's only one place you can register.
And to Tucson.
And that's on the Perimeter website. So if you're registered, your name should be on the bib.
My name would be, yeah, okay. My name will be on the bib, okay.
Yeah, because that's the only place you can register. We don't conduct our own registration.
Okay.
It all happens through Perimeter.
Okay.
So let's see, I had a couple of questions, Michael, that I was asked to answer. So how do participants raise funds? Well, at the risk of sounding trite, it's pretty simple. We ask other people for money. Now, in terms of how people track the funds they raise, I think that's probably the more pertinent question. There's two ways that donations can happen. The simplest way is actually to build yourself an online fundraising page that's hosted by Rotary International. And the instructions for doing that are also on our website, polioride.org. I've done it myself. It takes about 5 minutes. And we've only had one complaint from about 50 cyclists who've registered so far. It really is quite easy to do. And when people build their fundraising page online with Rotary, it makes it much easier for us to track the contributions. Now, you can also make donations the same old way we've donated money for years and years, which is just simply to turn it into your own club. If the donation is made by a Rotarian, then the Rotarian actually who's making the donation gets credit for that donation toward their Paul Harris. I'm going to ask Charlotte for a little bit of help on this, because I understand that once the donation is made through the club, basically a form is sent to Rotary International. Is that correct, Charlotte? And every club and every club leadership should know exactly how that happens. And so essentially in 13 years, we have never touched $1 of donations. They've always happened either through the online page or through individual clubs. And what I want to underscore is we've never taken $1 of donations to actually pay the operating costs of the ride. Those are done through sales of our cycling kits, shorts and shirts, and donations from people like Charlotte. And we usually hit up our district governor for $1,000 or so. And I'm happy to say we usually carry a balance. And so for Anita's luck, the ride for 2022 was fully paid for. I do have a sense that we may have a smaller number of riders this year. We've got about 50 registered so far. Rotarians are known for procrastinating, so it may be that we'll get a surge in registrations over this last month. But you know, we don't really set a goal and work to achieve a particular goal. We just work to have an event that provides fellowship and fun and fundraising. And you know, if we raise $2 million instead of $5 million, $2 million buys a hell of a lot of polio vaccine. And so we don't get caught up with the numbers. Does that answer? If there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah.
Ellie has her hand up.
Yeah.
Gary, just quickly, we no longer use the writeinpolio.org URL. Is that
correct? I loaned that to the district a couple of years ago, and the district governor refused to give it back to me. And so we now use polioride.org.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, if somebody goes to rideendpolio.org, it will forward them to our site. But the problem with that is a lot of folks' security settings on their computer will not allow forwards. So we just went to a completely different URL.
Because that was a strong one, Right to Polio.
Yeah, that was a strong one, and it was unfortunate the way it was handled, but I'm not going to go into district politics. It's not my thing.
Gary, is there a pre-ride dinner that Rotarians can attend?
There is, Michael, and that's registration is also at that same website. We've got about 50 people signed up for the dinner. We can accommodate, I think, 100 folks. We'll have the dinner at Brother John's Barbecue and Bourbon again this year. It was a great event last year. And, you know, it's mostly about fun, meeting other cyclists. Let's see, what else is important to know about that?
And we have a guest coming, right? And John Hugo will be there again, correct?
Well, we expect John and Margaret to be riding this year. Typically, they have brought a team of about 10 Rotarians with them, but they are still many working remotely, and so they've been unable to do what they normally do to recruit that team. So from Rotary International this year, we're expecting the Yukos, but I think that's all.
Okay, well, thank you, Gary, so much for the information this morning, but also thank you for many years of being the chair of our participation in El Tour and helping us to make that fundraiser so successful. So kudos to you and Daryl.
Well, it's kind of selfish, Mike. I figure if there's a heaven, that's my ticket in.
I'm sure you won't have any trouble. Okay, and now Charlotte Harris has been kind of our ringleader for the indoor part of our polio ride effort. Charlotte, can you give us a little rundown on how we can participate in that?
Sure, be glad to. Thank you for the opportunity. Individuals can pick up the registration form at that polioride.org website, but also if they email me, I will send them an application form. I've been in touch with teams that have been riding since 2018, and right now we have over 30 teams that will be participating. They are from 8 states. We've got one from Canada, and for the first time we have an E-Club that's riding, and I know that one of the members is in the US and the other one is in Argentina. Let's see. So when people register with me, I send them a little packet of information of how to organize a ride, a sample pledge sheet, frequently asked questions, and a sample that the Barrington Breakfast Club did, which was excellent, that they passed out to their members. Since the pandemic, as Gary mentioned, we do have other opportunities that come under the umbrella of the indoor ride. He mentioned the knitting. I believe that we're talking about things that a polio victim would not be able to do. And in a number of these indoor rides in other communities, they are actually riding their bike in their neighborhood. They're doing walks, they're doing runs. And the knitting I thought was kind of an interesting one. She raised money by knitting by the hour. When Mike had this idea of the Ride to End Polio, his thought was to help the small clubs raise funds without having to have an event, the expense nor the time. And by having one member of their club ride in the El Tour, or now to do an indoor ride, and their club members, excuse me, sponsor them, that is how, you know, a small club could participate. And I know that there are a number of clubs that still do that. Our smaller clubs in Arizona have been doing that. And as Gary mentioned, to raise funds, they can do a GoFundMe page. They can do the checks directly, and their RI chair can submit that money. I keep in touch with what I call the team captains, and they will report to me at the end how much money their team raised and how many riders they had. And during the pandemic, when there was no El Tour, the indoor opportunity raised over $110,000 before the Gates match. So it's a nice little entity that has established. I think they raised $169,000 last year before the match. And so I would be very glad And I noticed there was a little pop-up chat. I've got to check out that email and send an application to that person. So I'm glad to accept any questions at this time. If anybody, has any concerns or questions later, they're welcome to email me. Yes, Gare?
Yeah, I think we would be remiss if we didn't thank the Tucson Jewish Community Center that actually allows us to use their spin room each year to host the indoor ride without asking for anything in return.
Thank you, Gary. That's for our individual club ride, which is on the 8th of November. Yes, Ellie?
It was my understanding that Kirk, the Ride to End Polio chair, wanted the check sent to him. Is that correct for donations?
I've not heard that, no.
Okay.
I know in my case, I'm the Rotary Foundation chair for our club, and I submit the checks and keep track of that for our ride and also for our riders in El Tour. When our club members make a donation and sponsorship of one of our El Tour riders, I keep track of that also and let them know those donations have come in so they can thank people. But I'm not familiar with that. That's a good question, Ellie.
And Ellie, I think one of the benefits of us actually never handling the donations is it allows us to really make a very firm case of never having used $1 of donation to cover ride operating costs.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, well, Charlotte, thank you so much for your hard work and for continuing Mike's legacy of supporting Polio Plus. His idea 12, 13 years ago, modest at the time, has turned into, I think, the largest single fundraiser for Polio Plus. Amazing. So thank you for continuing that legacy and for all your continuing hard work with the indoor ride.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the people that have continued with this over the many years. So I see pictured on this Zoom meeting. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Charlotte. Okay, we have just a couple more items this morning, folks. I came across a video that President Jennifer Jones did on Polio Plus. And I liked it, so I asked Terry if she could play it for us. I think it's only 2.5 minutes. Terry?
Trying to get it to open here.
Jennifer has been to Tucson to ride with us. Actually, when Ernie had his district conference.
Greetings, my Rotary family. World Polio Day is always a wonderful opportunity to take note of our incredible progress and to talk about the fun.
Where did it go?
Greetings, my Rotary family. World Polio Day is always a wonderful opportunity to take note of our incredible progress and to talk about the final steps necessary to end polio now. But this year, it's special. Polio has returned to the headlines, and it's again striking fear. We know that the whole world is watching. And while we don't want anyone to live in fear, we should be grateful for this focus. We know that if the polio virus exists anywhere, it threatens children everywhere. This fact inspires your continuing hard work, dedication, donations, and advocacy. We're on the brink of eradicating polio because of you, and I want to thank you for it. And I want to add a special thank you to the people on the front lines, everyone working to vaccinate children in Pakistan. I had the opportunity to meet some of them during my recent visit, and I want to share with you a little bit of that experience. I just want to take an opportunity while I'm here with all of you to say thank you. What you're doing is incredibly powerful, meaningful, life-saving work. We're so close to polio being gone, and it's because of you that we're going to cross the finish line, and we're going to make sure every child is protected. So thank you. From one woman to another, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you. I'm so inspired by these amazing healthcare workers, and I hope they inspire you too. So please, donate your money, donate your time, and keep reminding everyone you know that the fight is theirs too. Together, let's give this amazing gift to the children of the world.
I admire and love Jennifer Jones. She's doing such a great job this year. And I was going to say, she's participated in our ride. And when Ernie had his district conference in Sierra Vista, 2010, she was the RI president's representative. And that was her first assignment as the president's rep to a district conference. And she's been doing remarkable work and is a special friend of District 5500. Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you now to talk about the Polio Plus Society. As I mentioned earlier, 2 years ago, we rolled that out to the district. And that day, that same day, I think on the spot, 30 members signed up, committed to give $100 a year to Polio Plus. And we have added another 30 or so to the list. But I have to say that Jim Lewis told me that District 5240, I don't know how many members they have in the district, but they have 400 members of the Polio Plus Society. So we have a ways to go to catch up with them. Terry, bring us up to date.
So it's only $100 a year, $2 a week, less than you spend on Starbucks coffee for sure. And I would like all of you to encourage your club members to join the Polio Plus Society. Most of the people who are on this Zoom meeting today are already members, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir. But don't forget to share it with your club members. Make copies of the commitment form, hand them out at your club meeting, ask people to sign up. $100 a year is cheap for what the cause is. And this year, thanks to my friend Barbara Kiernan, we have a little special offering for those people who donate to the Polio Plus Society, through the Polio Plus Society today. So if you are one of the first half dozen people to give your money today to the Polio Plus Society, you might be able to win a special thing. And I will share this with you in a second here. Slow coming up. Oh, it's going on its own, Barbara. So Barbara acquired these little plush Polio Plus pets. Each one of them has a Rotary shirt and logo on the front and an End Polio Now on the back. And each one of them has its own little name. So here's Cheeto the chimp, Christy the crocodile. I know there's a Christy on our call. Maybe she wants that one. This is the pup, which I really want myself, but I probably won't get it. And this is the orange bear, the panda, and this one is Anna, and I understand the San Luis Frontera Club gave one of these to Anita in honor of her visit to that club. So here's your chance to get something special. All you have to do is give us $100 today. So.
And sign the commitment form, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. If you haven't already done that.
But what if they've already given just 2 days ago or something? Can they still get a plush animal?
Well, we have like 6 of them. I don't know how many that you already have one, Anita.
I'm talking about others.
Okay, gotcha. We'll let our Polio Plus chair make an executive decision about that, because I know some people have recently given and have shared their with him their receipt from the Rotary Foundation for that. So,
and Terry, can you tell us again how to give?
The easiest way to do it is to go online and just click on the donate now button, and then when it asks where you want the money to go, you pick Polio Plus. Easy peasy, give them your credit card, it's done. But if you aren't comfortable with an online gift, you can send your commitment form and your check to me or to Michael, and we'll get them where they need to go.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, so you're putting it on me, Terry. I suggest that the folks who are not yet haven't yet made the commitment to be a member of Polio Plus Society, who do so and contribute $100, that they be first in line for one of the stuffed animals. And I'm confident that we'll have at least 6 new members sign up. So let's save them for those folks, okay?
We had only 3 people that registered for this Zoom call who aren't already members of the Polio Plus Society. So, and I don't think all 3 of those are even here, but we'll work it out.
We'll spread the word, and I'm sure we'll get some more commitments. One last point here, though, on Polio Plus Society, and it's a very significant one. Polio Plus Society heretofore has been just a district by district recognition program. It has not been recognized. It's not a program of the Rotary Foundation. You all know that Paul Harris Fellow was started in 1956 or so. And in recent years, districts started doing the Paul Harris Society, where you commit to $1,000 a year to the annual fund or polio or a global grant. And Polio Plus Society, similarly, was a district by district program that we adopted 2 years ago. We just learned that within the last few days from past trustee Brenda Cressy that the trustees are going to make Polio Plus Society a foundation recognition program. That's great news. That does 2 things. That gives it a more stature and credibility, and it also gives us a means to track donations. So that's terrific. So
we also have Polio Plus Society pins and bracelets and certificates, and Michael and I will start making the rounds to visit your clubs and present those to those of you who have joined that society.
Yes, 2 years ago when we had so many sign up, Greg Owen sent me those items, and I still have them. And I did not get out to clubs to give those to new members. But going forward, Terry and I will work that out, not only to get the pin and bracelet and certificate to new commitments, but to those folks who committed 2 years ago. So we're gonna get out our saddle horses and make the rounds to present those. Very good. Any final words or questions from anyone? It's about 10:30, so we're kind of right on schedule. Any final thoughts or comments?
I'll just express my thank you again to Jim Lewis for joining us today and sharing your story. It was very moving, and I really appreciate it. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
And Michael, I just had a real quick question. I thought your PowerPoint was very powerful. And I wondered if it is something that you could distribute to different clubs so that at different times they might show it to them. The figures, all of the information, it helped to reinforce all of the things that we have come to know generally over time.
Sure, Barbara. I have no pride of authorship, but any club that would like to have the program, I'll be glad to send it. I'm also glad to go to club meetings and speak about Polio Plus as well. I'm sure Terry is. So, but if you or anyone else would like that PowerPoint, I'll be glad to send it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, again, thanks everyone. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership. Jim Lewis, thank you for participating with us and for all of your great advocacy and work over the years. We appreciate it so much. So enjoy your weekend, folks, and we'll be talking with you soon.
Right. Thank you so much,
Bye-bye.
Michael, Terry, everybody.
Great job.